All right, y'all. 7th video of the Path to Profitability series. If you guys aren't familiar, this is the A through Z guide that I'm making completely free on my YouTube channel for you guys to go from beginner to advanced and as close to profitability as possible. All right, so this video is going to be specifically covering news, right? How I trade news, what is news, what to look out for, how to look out for it, where to check it, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's hop on my screen so you guys can see my screen. This is my screen right now. So every morning when I want to check out news, I go to this website, forexfactory.com. I have it pinned to my bookmarks, but I just look up forexfactory.com, and then pretty much it tells me all the news I'm going to be looking out for on the U.S. market because I'm trading the NASDAQ 100. That is the U.S. market. So I'm going to be looking for U.S. related news, right? Any sort of economical news. Usually the stuff that is more higher impact compared to other things, because those are the things that cause big moves in price, right? If you go to this website, right, you're going to be taken over here. When you go on it the first time, you're going to look like this. It's going to show this, right? A lot of things to look for, a lot of different news events happening every single day, right? But I don't really care about these yellow ones, because if we look at the filter and look at what these mean low impact. So that means they're not really going to impact the market. And if you keep them on and you observe the market, you're going to see most of these don't really cause an impact in the market. So what I do is I check out this one, and I only keep the orange, which is medium impact, along with the red, which is high impact, and this gray one, which is non-economic. But typically this box will only show you if we have a bank holiday. So like a bank holiday typically means that the markets are closed. That's what I look out for as well. And currencies, I don't look at any of these currencies. So I select none, and I make sure USD is selected. Event types, I make sure all of these events are selected because I want to see all the different events that are high impact, medium impact, or non-economic related. So we click, we click apply. And then it's going to show us everything present for this coming week. It's going to show you like the only one day, but if you press this more button on the bottom left, it'll show you for the entire week, right? But I just have it open so it shows me the entire week. So if you take a look here, Tuesday we do have core PPI news and PPI month over month. Okay, this is a news that comes out 5:30 a.m., which is pre-market for me for an hour, which this is Pacific time, so it's going to be 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So this is going to be pre-market news. So you might see some sort of jump on at pre-market, for example, at 5:30 if we can find anything. There was no news today, but yeah, so 5:30, let's take a look at another day, maybe someday. This is definitely 5:30. Yeah, you just look at the chart, you can spot a big long candle. Typically means it's 5:30. It's gonna be 5:30 that time, because there's usually most pre-market news comes out at 5:30, like CPI, PPI, unemployment claims, I believe, non-farm NFP. So those stuff are all typically gonna come out 5:30 a.m., which is 8:30 Eastern time, and you're gonna see a big candle like this, either to the downside or to the upside. Okay, and we don't trade pre-market, so we don't really mind it. It's just some people, they don't like trading when there's a specific news on those days, but I don't really care. I don't really care whether or not there's news on certain days or not, because my strategy revolves around scalping, right? I'm trading every single day regardless of the news, because from my testing and from my experience, I found that it doesn't really matter what news happens and what news is on the day, except certain news days I am more cautious, because, for example, days where we have FOMC meetings or Jerome Powell speaking or some big FOMC related Fed meeting, the price action tends to chop up until that big FOMC meeting, whether it be FOMC meeting minutes or FOMC meeting. Price tends to chop up until we get to that meeting point in time. Okay, so my strategy, you guys know, revolves around trend. So I'm looking to catch a long move. Not a long move, but I want to see clear trend direction, and I'm trying to play in the direction of that trend, hoping that we're going to continue in the direction of that trend. But when we typically get news events like FOMC or FOMC meeting minutes or any of that FOMC related stuff, we see a lot of chop at market open up until the FOMC meeting, which is around 11 o'clock Pacific time, which is what, 2 o'clock Eastern time. So 2 o'clock Eastern time, you're going to see that news event get released, and that'll cause a huge spike in volatility. So I guess the reasoning could be all the volatility is saved up for that time. So that's why there's not much volatility at market open, which is again when I trade, because I trade the first 45 minutes ish to of market open, of New York session market open. So 9:30 Eastern to 10:15 Eastern, right? So yeah, sometimes we just don't see that volatility at market open. And I'm very hesitant to take trades on those days unless it's an A plus setup and we really do see a lot of movement. Because again, like I said, it chops up on those days, right? I can't say that enough because I want you guys to be very careful, especially since some of you guys might not even be scalping. You guys need to be aware that sometimes when we have FOMC or big news events, we might see a low volatility on regular trading hours. And then when the news drops, boom, crazy amount of volatility for like 10 minutes, or like crazy volatility on the candle of the news event, the time it's supposed to release. And then at 10 minutes after, 15 minutes after, you get some volatility and then it dies back to normal. Dies down back to normal. So one of the biggest ones are CPI, right? Releasing pre-market. CPI is a big one. We also have unemployment claims. Unemployment claims is a big one that happens pre-market. PPI is also another one. It's not as strong as CPI, but it's still a very high impact news event. If you take a look at the next week, I don't know what this WEF annual meetings are, but if you guys want an explanation on what the meeting is specifically, you can press on this folder icon and it will show you what the actual, what it tracks, what the measure of that news event is, the frequency of it, how often it gets released, the effect of it on the market, or not effect on the market, but it says actual greater than forecast. Oh yeah, okay, so based on how it compares to the previous or the forecast of the outcome of this news event, right? It tells you the effect on the currency based on the result of that. It tells you the history of what it was in the past. So if you guys are very fundamental related traders and you guys want to take in account of news and all that data with your trades, you can also use that on this website as well, right? And there's some extra stuff down here. Also, what is it called? Acro expand, what it means in the long form. But yeah, I don't really pay attention to this stuff because some of them I already know what they are. If I don't know some of them, I'll just open it up, read it, what they are, just to understand it better. But for the most part, I'm looking over here to see what news do we have for the day and when. Because, like I said, there's two things I look for news. When it comes out, because I'm very hesitant to take a trade. For example, if there's FOMC coming out, right? What specific news comes out and when it comes out. By when it comes out, I mean like I wait. If I know there's a news event coming at, let's say, it's 10 o'clock Eastern. At 10 o'clock Eastern, let's say there's a news event coming out. I'm not trading within a 10-minute window of that news event. So 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after of that news event, I'm typically not going to look for a trade. Right? I'm going to stay patient, because I know when that news event release, typically what we like to see is last few minutes of that news event releasing, we tend to see price chop up a little bit. And then on that news candle, especially if it's a high impact news candle, we'll see a big spike of volatility in the news candle. And a few minutes after, there will still be a little bit of volatility. And then eventually within like 5 minutes, it'll be back, died down. It could be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes of that period before and after. So 3 to 5 minutes before and 3 to 5 minutes after. But that just all depends on what the price action is looking like, right? It's not a fully robotic method. If the price action is looking clean, I'm gonna still be open to taking a trade, right? But if it's looking very choppy early on within five minutes before the news event, then I'm not gonna be looking for taking a trade, right? It's all about being dynamic and understanding price action and being able to read it properly, and that comes with experience and time in the markets, right? So you start to understand when price action is choppy, when the conditions are bad, and when the conditions are good, just from observing price action develop day after day after day. All right, that pretty much sums up news. Let me think if I haven't covered anything else. But for the most part, yeah. If you guys are more of an intraday trader, I would say stay away from trading days like CPI is a big one. What else? There's a few other ones. FOMC especially. That would be my biggest one that I'd recommend for you guys to be careful of. Right? I would say still stay up on the charts. Watch the price action for the day. And see how your strategy plays out, right? I don't say disregard it completely. I know some people say completely disregard it. The only reason I would say potentially disregard FOMC is because on FOMC days, we do see a lot of chop up until the price action. Up until the news event gets released. So One, there's a lot of chop. I'm sure a lot of you guys are not trading consolidation strategies where you're like waiting for a price to go in a choppy range, unpredictable range, and then bet on the opposite side when it reaches one side. I'm pretty sure most of you guys' strategies aren't like that. You guys like volatility. You guys like momentum. You guys like movement. You guys like trend, especially if you trade a strategy similar to my strategy, right? We play with the continuation of the trend, right? A trend is our friend. It's not our enemy. We want to play with the high probability direction. So if that's the case for you guys, I would recommend always try and test your strategy on these news days. See how your strategy plays out on CPI day or PPI day. Like what I did for my strategy, and I used to trade an intraday longer term trend following strategy on CPI days specifically too, because I went back and I tested it on all the CPI days for a year, and I found that it performs profitably on all the CPI days. If you combine them all together. Yeah, some days on CPI I was red. Some CPI days I was red, but for the most part, I was ending up green if I, for example, only traded CPI days. So I found that, okay, this is a profitable measure. I'm going to add this into my days of trading and news events that I'm going to be trading under. So before, I used to not trade CPI until I tracked it and saw that it works on CPI days, and I included it in my trading performance ever since. So I highly recommend all of you guys to do that and not just blindly skip news trading days. If you guys even want to, you can track FOMC, but I'm just going with the approach of saying you guys shouldn't do it because it's like the choppiest day you'll ever see price action be. Days where we have FOMC or FOMC meeting minutes, big news events days, economic news event days. You'll see a lot of chop up until that news event gets released later in the day around 2 p.m. Eastern. So that's my advice for you guys for news. So this is an example of what the gray thing will look like. Bank holiday. So typically, most of the time, it will be bank holiday. So that's all. You know, when it's a bank holiday, typically the markets will be closed. If you want, I have another website as well. If you guys want to also use that as well, it gives you some more information. This will also tell you sometimes when the market's closed. So check it out. But that pretty much sums up everything about news that I really care about. What does this graph do? Oh, shoot, that's sick. It plots the graph for all the data for the past years. That's sick. So if you guys like fundamental analysis, you can get pretty deep with this, pretty hefty, a lot of knowledge in here. So you guys can involve that. But for me, you can also go back for like as many times as you want. So if you guys are back testing, I highly recommend having this open. Let's say you don't trade on CPI days specifically, and you're back testing months and months and months back. Always have this on the side and go back to see like, okay, on this day, for example, FOMC. These days, I would highly recommend you guys to stay away from FOMC press conference, FOMC statement, FOMC economic projections, federal funds rate. You'll typically see these three getting released all together. This one usually as well, all together, right? They have this stuff getting released, and then you have the press conference after. So what is a star? Why does it have a star? Oh, source set a target. Okay. But yeah, so this is the event I would highly recommend you guys to stay away from, or at least sit and watch and see your strategy fail in these conditions. But let's see. Yeah, like for example, CPI, go back, see, okay, September 11, the US CPI day, and just track. Like another big factor when you're testing your trades. Also, we'll get into testing and all that stuff later down in the next coming videos. I'm just saying this because if you guys are familiar with testing and how to backtest, I would highly recommend you implementing this, because just in case I don't go over news when I cover the backtesting video, which I most probably will, but I'm just saying it just in case. So you're going to want to go over and make a note of what news was present on the day of your trading. For example, was there CPI? Was there crude oil inventories? Was there PPI? Or was there unemployment claims? What was there? What was the impact of the news? You can color code it in Notion. Also, I'll give you guys a whole method of backtesting on Notions, but you can color code it as well. The specific, for example, news related names. Like I added every single news event to the list, so every time I could just select the news event instead of having to type it out every time, and it's color coded with a box. So it's red for high impact and orange for like medium impact and gray for holiday. Typically, it's only going to be red and orange because holidays you're not going to backtest. It's going to be closed. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up for news. It's a pretty short video this time, but yeah, that's about it. So I'll catch you guys in the next video.